Imagine packing your bags, leaving behind years of shared memories, and feeling both that freedom and that profound sadness at the same time. In today's episode, we'll explore the coexistence of joy and grief in separation and how to help either yourself or your loved ones through it. Stay tuned.
Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's walk and talk.
Welcome back, my friends, to Fulfillment Therapy, where we explore ways to improve your mental health, wellness, and life fulfillment. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're discussing complicated joy and grief in leaving a partner. Now, I recognize that many of you may not be leaving a partner or a spouse, and this is still so important because most of us have a sibling, a cousin, a best friend, somebody, even a child that is considering leaving their partner or their marriage, whatever that is, and doesn't know what to do. So you can be that person to help them as you learn some of these things today. Or maybe it is you and you are just not quite sure how to do it. Either way, this episode will apply to you. So I want to share a story. And for those of you that haven't listened very much, you may not know this, but I do not share any stories that would identify you. So if you're a client, you don't need to worry about it. I will often blend the stories of clients so it's not identifiable. I just use it for information on what to teach. So you don't have to worry that I'm going to share your story with the world. It's blended. Don't panic. I also don't use any of their real names ever. So that being said, I want to share a story of a client who was unhappy in her marriage for years and made the difficult decision to leave. She felt a lot of liberation and also this profound sadness when she did pack her bags and the kids' bags. And even her ex felt some of that. But there is this sense of sadness as this chapter closes, leaving behind those shared memories, especially when it's complicated with kids being in the home. And I'll share in just a bit some of the happily ever after of this and how she coped with this, but I'll come back to that in just a minute. So how is that possible, that coexistence of both joy and grief when you're leaving somebody you've cared about for years? How can that happen when they've caused you so much pain, when there's been so much turmoil, when you had such high expectations going into it, when you just feel that relief? No, that's not what we see. It's ups and downs. It's gratitude. It's joy for leaving. It's bliss. And it's also your lowest of lows as you learn to navigate things on your own, as you feel lonely and afraid and uncertain, as you see the detrimental effects to your loved ones and the positives. Like it's just back and forth over and over again. We are going to talk today how to normalize these emotions as part of the complex human experience that maybe we don't hear a lot about in our day-to-day interactions. So what is complicated grief? It's a prolonged, intense mourning that disrupts your daily life. Separation or divorce often triggers this due to that loss of shared dreams, like I mentioned, or those identities, those routines. It's so tied up to your relationship. And it's hard to know who you are without that when it's been your life for so long. I tell a lot of my clients that joy can coexist with that grief. There's going to be moments of happiness. There's going to be moments of relief and happiness, like spending time with your kids and rediscovering your hobbies you've wanted to do for years but haven't been able to because your life has been so wrapped up in this other person or these challenges you faced. Even in the middle of that, you can have that deep sorrow and even loathing for yourself that you feel sorrow when they cause you so much pain and you feel just so good about leaving, but so sad and so angry all at once. It's very complicated. Kahlil Gibran said, "The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain." So, with those lows, it naturally creates these great highs because with those deep valleys come those very high summits as well. For example, a parent might feel a lot of sadness during their kid's first solo recital because their ex isn't there to take pride in their child's growth. And that's something that maybe they'd done before together, even though they don't do it now. Even despite all of those terrible memories, it was something they did together. And that's just one example of how clients have mentioned that it pops up for them. How else can that complicated grief show up? There's that emotional ambivalence. So that's feeling both freedom and loss at the same time. For example, maybe celebrating a new beginning, maybe that new apartment or new look that you have, while mourning the end of some of those family traditions that you've done together every year. Like maybe you go to Disneyland together every summer, and now that's not going to be a part of that. And you might have to share that time and mourning that thing that you all look forward to. Some of the physical symptoms from complicated grief can be fatigue, lack of focus, or even physical aches in your body due to that emotional distress. Like a lot of my clients feel it in their shoulders, they feel it in their back, they feel it in their gut sometimes as they're managing that anxiety, and their life is topsy turvy. Some of my clients even talk about how it shows up in social challenges, like struggling to explain their feelings to other people who might expect you to only feel relief or happiness and not understand when you're feeling sad or worrying if you do because they think you're going to go right back to that situation, not really understanding that because this is what you wanted all along. And it can feel very lonely and isolating. For example, a mom might feel isolated at family gatherings because nobody acknowledges her grief over the divorce and tries to change the subject or give a silver lining when really she just needs to feel validated and have it be normalized, avoided, or invalidated. So, if this is you or maybe a loved one, how can you manage those complicated emotions? It comes down to self compassion. We go through this a lot with all of my clients again and again because it's something we can always improve on. Allow yourself to feel both that joy and that grief without judgment. Journaling really helps with this. Therapy really helps with this. A good friend that's not just seeking to fuel that fire, but to give you space to share your feelings and they can normalize it and validate it in that process. You can also plan for those triggers. So anticipate those tough moments like anniversaries or holidays and create new traditions with your kids. This is something my sisters have talked about doing. And at first it was really depressing, but then it started to get fun as they thought of new ways of doing things that maybe they would like even better, that are meaningful just to my sisters and their kids, and getting their buy in on that. Queen Elizabeth II said, "Grief is the price we pay for love." So we don't want to avoid love by any means, even though part of us wants to protect our heart. Like, grief is a part of loving, and that's okay. I had one client recently that talked about his failed marriage, and now he wants to change that wedding anniversary into something positive instead of remembering all those negative things or that complicated grief that goes with it. And now he does a special outing with his kids on that day to create those positive memories instead of just dwelling on the past and staying stuck in that space. He still tries to make room for it, and we talk about those things, but he's changing that tradition and creating new things to enjoy instead. So, what if this is you or you're seeing a loved one do this and there's kids involved? What you can do is be emotionally available. Validate your kids without projecting your own grief onto them. Now, maybe you're the aunt or uncle in this situation, so you can also just be that presence for them. Allow them to feel their feelings and just be there for them emotionally and give them space to share. Let them know that you're a trusted person. You're not going to share that information with other people, but it's safe for them to process with you. Have honest conversations with them, whether they're your kids or some family members or friends, and use that age appropriate language to explain why the separation happened. Make sure that you emphasize that it's not their fault. Because even if they act like it's not their fault, they are likely internalizing it and thinking that it is, even if they don't vocalize that. So it's important to give them that validation, even if they haven't expressed that they think it's their fault. For example, you could say, Mom and Dad have decided that we're happier living apart, but we both love you so much. We're working through our own things that don't have to do with you. And we're trying to be better people, but sometimes that's easier to do when mom and dad aren't living in the same house together. Also, remember that stability matters, especially to kids. So keep those routines consistent to provide that extra security that they're going to need when they're feeling so vulnerable, because a lot of change is very big and very difficult for kids. I know divorce can be very complicated. Something that you never wanted, maybe don't even believe in, never wanted to be part of your story. But sometimes it's the best thing for both you and your family. And you determine that. I'm not going to go into that right now. But Jennifer Weiner said, divorce isn't such a tragedy staying in an unhappy marriage, teaching your children the wrong things about love. Remember, you're a model to your children about what relationships can look like. And you want to teach them what healthy relationships look like. I'm not saying you have to run and go get a divorce if you're not modeling it right. Like, hopefully, you and your spouse are able to get help if you're not in that stage where you need a divorce or separation. But when that is not possible and there is a separation or a divorce, at some point you can share some of these things when it's developmentally appropriate. Sometimes it's the best for all parties involved when it's teaching the wrong things about love. Now, I just want to give you a few tips for that adaptive healing that we want. Build that support system, even if you feel like isolating and hiding from the world. Like maybe you're embarrassed, maybe you're overwhelmed, maybe you're depressed. That's an even bigger reason to build that support system. So lean on your friends and your family and your support groups, especially those that will bring relief and support in the way that you need it right now. And if not, communicate that. Also, as always, focus on that self-care. Please rest and exercise and do those hobbies that will bring you joy as you redefine who you are outside of that relationship. And please get help. Sometimes you'll need that extra help to forgive yourself, maybe to forgive your ex. Because as you let go of that anger, you free yourself emotionally and model that healthy coping for your kids. I'm not saying you have to rush to that right away. Sometimes we do that and it's not very sincere, but also don't use that as a justification to sit in that too long. But let your kids know that you're doing your best to process these things. You're doing your best to feel your feelings, but not stay stuck in them. For example, I had one client that's a mom that chose not to speak negatively about her ex in front of her kids, even when she was frustrated. But she did process those things in our session and was able to still feel her feelings, but not project her feelings onto her kids and further complicate that and create undue stress for them. Another thing you can do that I love to do with clients is to look forward. There's a quote that I have on my desk. I'm actually looking at it right now. It says, there are far better things ahead than any we may leave behind. And that's from C.S. Lewis. So even if those are crushed dreams, even if there's so many things and we can't possibly see joy in the future, there is joy. Even if we can't see it now, just hold on to that hope. Set those small goals for personal growth. Maybe it's taking a class or starting something new to create excitement about your future, because there really is so much joy ahead, even if you can't quite see it yet. And holding on to that hope is a tool that can help pull you through that complicated grief. So going back to that story of my client from the beginning, she really did find so much joy and so much peace as she separated, and then eventually divorced. She did have a lot of highs and lows that we worked through, but she created those new traditions with her kids, like I've talked to you about. And she really created this bigger support network, and people were so willing. So a lot of her fears were unfounded that she wouldn't have a support network or she'd be judged. No, she was sometimes, but she was able to manage that. And she did eventually start dating again when she was ready. She did try out new things that she hadn't allowed herself to do before, like a new look, new hobbies, new traditions, and she found some joy in that. Now, she still has some hard days, but generally, she said she feels so much better than she ever felt in her marriage. She feels this weight off of her. She always wanted to work out very well. In this case, it just wasn't changing because he was not interested in owning his part, and they were just stuck for so long. And it was so destructive for both her and the different members of the family. So remember that joy and grief can coexist. It's normal to feel both of these during transition. You can anticipate those emotional triggers and plan for ways to respond more adaptively. Be emotionally present with your kids by validating their feelings and giving them that stability they need during these difficult times. Get some help with that extra accountability for self-care and prioritizing healing, whether with a therapist or somebody else. And remember that this chapter is an end, but it's also an opportunity for new beginnings. You are not alone in this journey, even though you might feel like you are. Don't run from those feelings, but process them. Otherwise, they will rear their head again and again. Remember that feelings buried alive never die. I don't know if you remember this part of my story, but my mom had 7 children and remarried, and it was a very destructive, difficult relationship. And my mom did eventually choose to leave that. And in both the case of death and in the case of divorce, I watched her experience that complicated grief from all that was happening and the highs and the lows, and really trying to show up in the way that would be helpful for her kids. And it was hard for her. It really was. But just trying to course correct as you're doing that and get that support group that can help you when you're not at your best. That's okay. We're all trying and we don't get it right the first time. You will find fulfillment again as you work on those small incremental steps. That's all I have for you today. If you feel like this would help someone else, please share this link with a friend through a text or an email or on social media. And if you'd like to get weekly updates on what's happening with our future podcast episodes or our blog or anything else, and you want those weekly tools to help deepen your life fulfillment and improve your mental health and wellness, sign up for our weekly emails on fulfillmenttherapy.org. You'll also be the first to know about some amazing deals that are coming around the corner with the holidays. So sign up for that now. You can get all of those links in the show notes, and you can find that on fulfillmenttherapy.org. I'll see you back here every Monday and Thursday with a new episode. Until then, thanks for listening.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.